Excellent. Sorry, I just started the recording, so we missed all of that for recording. I'm glad you're all here.
Yeah.
Oh, that's your job, Ian. Remember, you're supposed to remind me. I can't see recording.
No, I blew it.
I've got totally too many projects, so I humbly ask for your help when it comes to the recording button. Lynette?
Talk about the monarchy at all? In the middle of all that.
Okay.
You know, I was just thinking about they're born into that, and that's the ultimate of the caste system is the British monarchy. I'm just thinking about where Charles and everybody, you know, they're born into that, and they really don't. They probably have a choice, but they don't.
Can I get you to move over at least one
I'll
seat?
do that.
Yeah, that's fine.
So yeah, they don't, they're born into it, and they're really kind of forced into doing this kind of a thing, you know? I mean, they're forced into.
Okay. So the ancient monarchical governments have a caste system. The aristocracy system in England, clearly a caste system. And so as we begin to analyze what's going on here in India and within the religion of Hinduism, there's first of all a naturalism, people structure, and there's an oppression that Ian has immediately put his finger on that we need to analyze and figure out what that's part of. But I want you to understand that the creation hymn itself is the glue to the Hindu understanding of what the social structure is and what your role is in the social structure. It's not just somebody being an autocrat telling you this is the way you're supposed to think. It's the spiritual community saying this is the way it is, which gives it its enormous power. And part of the problem was they recognized that and they outlawed the caste system in India in 1950. But that doesn't stop it from being powerful to this day, where women could lose their lives if they attempt to marry out of their caste. And so there is enormous social power built into the caste system within the Indian society and therefore Hinduism. Okay, so those are the two readings of creation that I just wanted to use to let you get a sense. Number one, thank you for identifying Hinduism is a wonderful religion of asking good questions. It is its greatest power, is simply asking you a question. And that's terribly valuable. But Ian's touch on its defect. It's very oppressive. And we've got to understand how they deal with that oppression and why they don't care about its oppression in a lot of levels. Okay. What Kate has given you is the student outline as opposed to the student notes. So that allows for you to have a place of putting your notes without me giving you all the notes. It gives you an outline instead of it's a student tool as opposed to a participant in a lecture tool, which are all the lecture notes. So anyway, that's what she's just given you. Okay. Okay, let's get this started. Okay, I asked you a tough project, I think, this week, and that's to see whether you could connect with anybody from Hindu / Indian society that might be a conversation partner, and if you could do it safely. Did anybody try and do that?
No.
Okay, Kate,
So,
I'll start with Kate. What was your experience?
I did not reach out, but I do have someone in mind. So maybe over the next week I could reach out to them.
Excellent. Yeah. Thank you. Ian, what was your experience?
yeah. So I'm going to the relationship school and I'm learning how to coach. And so one of my peers is actually from India. She lives in Australia now. And we had a conversation a couple weeks ago, getting to know each other. And she was open with me about her experience as far as, being, what's the term when they're like a forced marriage? That's not the right term.
Arranged
yeah.
marriage. Yeah.
So culturally and religiously. Like she was part of an arranged marriage, and I think that marriage lasted for just over 20 years, and it became abusive. And she finally stood up for herself and left the marriage despite the shame that her culture and religion would place on her for doing such a thing. And it's been a couple years, and she's found a lot of healing. But to me, it just said so much about like, yeah, just kind of I don't know. It was just a powerful story, and I can only imagine how confronting for her it would have been to stand up against a very big part of her life and the people around her and say, this is not okay.
Excellent. That's a great partner for this course. Glad you discovered her. And I hope you're able to draw from conversations as you work on a meaningful relationship there.
Yeah, thank you. I will draw from that relationship.
Well, this might be new to you, so I won't. But it's a challenge to bring a conversation partner into the classroom of someone in some way. It's just part of our world that you can reach out to someone around the world and build a conversation with them. This is the first time I've asked it. I can imagine all sorts of landmines in this request, and I trust you don't blow your leg off or arm off trying to figure out what I'm trying to ask of you. But it is something that if you were, and again, I'm recommending the same gender, and so, but if you can, find somebody out in that world that might be a conversation partner, so you can bounce ideas off, and that gives diversity to the classroom that I think is really meaningful, because none of us are Indian or Hindu. That's always my challenge. My role is to teach all the religions, but I'm one person. I can't. And every religion is a full life. It will give you a full life. In fact, it'll give you the full life of all families in your family. So it's a very complex entity that is incredibly challenging to teach. But if we can get other partners in that, as far as teachers in that sense, of those that have lived it, we increase our ability to understand it. And so that's one of the reasons. So it's just a challenge. Anybody have a chance to watch a movie or do anything that related to the course in that way this past week?
Yeah, I got to watch Gandhi.
Oh, tell us, what'd you think?
Long movie.
Very long, but was it 3 hours?
yeah, just over 3 hours.
Yeah.
Took a couple nights to watch it. But I actually, I liked that it was kind of a slow pace, because it just gave me time to digest his story and like how people saw him and how impactful he was. So, I mean, he, at some points would actually sacrifice his well-being in ways to get the attention of the people and get them to realize that nonviolence was the way and reacting was not. He would fast for a long time to get his followers to subside and resort to peaceful protests. He did so much, and yeah, I can see why he stands out so much in world culture, because he was impactful to so many people.
And the number one impact would be Martin Luther King. Martin Luther King was able to learn from Gandhi, from the previous generation, a tactic that he could use in the social reconstruction of American life. And that has become the Black Lives Matter movement today. So Gandhi has had a tremendous influence, and we'll get the privilege of studying what was his influence, and that was the Jains. And so our final section is to try and understand, wow, what kind of a society would construct a person like Gandhi? And so thank you for doing that. Any other?
You mind if I mention one more thing?
Sure.
I didn't know that he was so well educated.
Oh.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, he went to law school and college in England, I think, or somewhere in Europe.
Cambridge trained.
And yeah, I think that was such a great tool for him to communicate with people of power.
Yeah.
While also being a spiritual and social leader to so many people. He had really strong communication tools to, just play that part.
His educated, including all the major religions of the world. So that was part of his education, and because of that, he could work within all of those spheres. So thank you. His education was an important part of his success.
Yeah.
That's important.
So
Thank you.
it really gave him choices. He wasn't stuck in any one particular thing. He gave him choices.
Yep.
So that he made choices, and he made tough choices. It's not like he was stuck he wasn't a slave, that trying to claw their way up from the bottom. He was actually, he had all the tools that
What was his caste? Did it talk about that at all, Ian?
his cast.
Yeah.
Oh,
What was Gandhi's caste? I wonder. So
Yeah, I don't
The
remember.
movie, I don't think identified it, did it?
It might have been a very small blip in that 3 hours.
Yeah, well, yeah. You took a breath that moment and didn't catch it. That's all right. I don't think it was a part. I don't think they made it a part of the movie, but I think it'd be an interesting
maybe
part
not.
of his biography
Yeah.
to know that. And I wouldn't doubt it from it, but we'll see. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, some writing this week. Did anyone have a chance to do some writing? Okay, it's reaching. This is good. Ian did some writing for me. Oh man, this
I
is
did.
working, folks.
Yeah.
Yeah, give me a copy. Thank you.
I even submitted it
Did
on.
it actually work on
iLearn.
iLearn? Did that
Yeah, I
work?
put it in there.
Yay. Okay, you can tell I've been.
Yeah, so it's there for you to review.
Thank you. Do you have access to read it? Just for.
Yes.
Okay. Kate,
Yeah.
why don't you start and just take a minute and let everybody get a sense of your writing and what you found interesting. So first, what did you sense was the prompt? What were you wanting me to do? Just so I know how you read my assignment.
Like, what did I think I was supposed to do?
Yeah. What?
Well, first I did like a little summary of what I read in the textbook, and then I did a reflection of my own experience with the topic,
Okay.
I guess.
Thank you. And then you pulled out. Looks like you pulled out one idea.
Yes.
Okay. So you didn't give me a summary here, but you did some summarization work just to give yourself a sense of grounding. Did you? Is that?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I took the idea and I kind of like talked about what it is. Like, I gave a summary of the idea itself, and then discussed it.
Ian, what was your sense of the assignment? Thank you. That's what I wanted you to do. So is that something?
I didn't pick up on everything that Kate said, but my interpretation was to pick a couple ideas that stood out to me in the introduction of the Gita and analyze or reflect on them, my understanding.
Okay. The one adjustment is when your textbook arrives, it's for you to do your analysis on your general reading, so that you'll be reading the chapter on Hinduism, and you're cueing me what one idea in the chapter on Hinduism was most meaningful to you. Now you can guarantee every chapter we'll talk about the Gita, so I think you got there through the back door. But it's just a way for you to interact with the text and to let me know what's most appealing to you as you encounter a new religion. Okay, so thank you. The only text you had was the Gita, so you responded well. Thank you for doing that. When your texts do arrive, if you'd make that shift, okay?
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Thank you. Okay.
That makes sense, yeah.
Hey, would you read this to us?
Yeah.
And we won't read them every time.
Okay.
But I do want you to hear the first time
Okay.
how other students are reacting to the assignment.
Sure. Okay. So I wrote about Shaktism. Shaktism is one of the best known traditions within Hinduism. Shaktism is devotion to the great goddess, Mahadevi, or one of her many incarnations. Shakti is the female energy counterpart to Shiva. Shakti is the manifest world, Shiva, the pure consciousness behind it. Shakti also means strength, power, and force. It is the force behind any deity and is the energy incarnated by the goddesses. The goddess counterparts of the three great gods are Saraswati, wife of Brahma, Lakshmi, wife of Vishnu, and Parvati, wife of Shiva. The land of India is known as Divine Mother and has many holy sites and places of worship. Many Hindus worship the land itself. Hindus often make many pilgrimages to these sacred cities and rivers within their lifetime. Hang on, I need to shake that.
It's hard to have.
Yeah, it is. These holy sites are manifestations of the sacred that arise from the land itself. Hindu religion and the land of India are intrinsically tied to each other. Goddess worship is a part of my own spiritual practice already. I love the goddess of beauty and abundance, Lakshmi. Her symbol is the lotus flower, and the lotus is one of my favorite symbols. Beauty, fortune, prosperity, and wealth are all blessings she offers. Lakshmi teaches that true wealth is spiritual wealth. Lakshmi inspires me to be abundant. I would also consider the earth a goddess, our mother. We all arise from her essence, and when we die, we return to her. I have developed a strong relationship with the earth over many years through spending time in nature, and more recently, gardening. My love and appreciation for nature grows every day. The land here nourishes my body through foraging, gardening, recreation, and hunting. I feel so blessed to live in a place like McCall, where I can walk out my front door and be surrounded by trees. The early morning, sunrise, midday, afternoon, evening, sunset, and night all carry their own special colors and hues. I carefully observe nature at all times of the day. The spending time in nature always helps me to feel refreshed and revitalized.
Okay, this is fabulous.
Thank
You are a very good writer.
Thank you.
And you captured what I was hoping for, and that's for you to connect with the information you're receiving, and you did that in abundance. And so thank you for that. And I want, and again, I don't see many students write this well, you've done a marvelous job of writing. So that helps me, because as a writing instructor at USC for 6 years, the first thing I see is not very good writing. If a person gives me assignment and their writing's a mess, I turn into a writing instructor again, and I'm correcting the writing. I can never, it's so hard for me to drill through to what they're saying because I struggle with the writing. You make it, there is no struggle in what you've written. So you have been blessed with good writing background. Ian, what's yours? Do you have access to it?
Do you mind if I try and
Would you
share my
indicate
screen?
some
real quick?
response? Sure.
Yeah.
Would,
Okay.
Would you want to read?
Okay.
Okay.
Yes, I would love to read. Yeah. Okay. The analysis of Bhagavad Gita introduction. So the introduction of the Bhagavad Gita's depth leaves me in awe with an open heart, as well as confusion and a headache.
Good for you.
Eknath Easwaran's translation of the Gita definitely allows for a more easily digestible version, and the wisdom amidst its pages dives deep below the surface as it speaks to everyday life. No matter the choice of words and simplification of the scripture, the Gita speaks to life's biggest question. What is this experience all about? I'd like to write about a few ideas that caught my attention as I pondered my way through the introduction to the Bhagavad Gita. Eknath says, the very heart of the Gita's message is to see the Lord in every creature and act accordingly. Mm-hmm. To me, this speaks to the intention we can carry with us throughout each day so that we may find, receive, and give the greatest gift of all, our own presence. More importantly, the presence I speak of is loving, kind, compassion, and of service. So, treat everything and every being as if it were the Lord, because, as the Gita explains further in the terms of karma, for every action there is a reaction. I dare to say that most human beings seek to live a joyful and abundant life, and if you offer the very things you wish to receive, then they will come under the laws of karma. Hence, why it will behoove us to mind the guidance of the Gita when it suggests to see the Lord in every creature and treat it as such. Furthermore, I will speak to the Hindu terms Atman and Brahman. Atman is defined as self. Brahman is the unifying consciousness underlying and pervading the entire universe. As India was progressing its working knowledge of physical sciences and mathematics, the sages were tuning inward and tuning into the wisdom of nature within themselves. Turning inward or meditating allowed them a means to explore beyond the normal senses and tune into something that remained constant below the ever-changing experience of the physical, mental, and emotional world we commonly live in. This divine ground of existence, Brahman, is described as the infinite and indivisible reality from which all creation is born. Albeit each of us are our unique individual self, or Atman, that very same self is within all of us, Brahman, or Godhead. This leads us to the idea that we are all one, that God is everywhere and within us all. So to treat everyone and everything as our Lord is to treat ourselves as the Lord. Thus, what comes around goes around. These profound explorations of our existence, to me, are a testament to why we are here, to experience the universe, ourselves, and the universe within ourselves that is reflected outside of ourselves. The Bhagavad Gita proves an excellent guide and means to do so.
Wonderful. Ian, is this your first encounter with the Gita?
Yeah, I've literally maybe opened the Gita once and read something out of it very shortly before this.
So this is your first deep dive.
Yeah.
Well, welcome to something it sounds like you're going to enjoy.
I am already enjoying it.
See, there's the part of doing stuff like this. These professors make you do things that you eventually realize you enjoy. One of the great tragedies, boy, I tell you.
That's why I signed up for this class.
Tell me, okay, that's a nice bridge, and well done. Thank you. I look forward to reading that. Any cross conversations on what you heard? Thank you. Gita, chapters 1 through 5. Was there an idea you'd like to throw into the midst that just got your attention and you just want to do that orally here?
I'm sorry, say that again, Brian.
Our assignment was to read the first 5 chapters of the Gita for this week. Was there one idea that, and again, this isn't a written assignment, it's just an oral conversation from reading, that you thought was intriguing? Kate, you got something?
Yeah, just the idea of service. I mean, over these chapters, the word service just comes up over and over and over again, it seems.
There's an adjective to that service.
Selfless service.
Selfless service. Yeah, I'm not going to let you skip over that because it really pounds it in, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a critical point of what Krishna is saying.
And grow it a little more. What did it do to you to read that word over and over and over and over?
Well,
that concept.
It plants a seed in my subconscious mind, I think. Really, it's planting that seed to have that on my radar in my day-to-day life when I'm doing my work in the world.
Thank you. So selfless service, crucial element. Ian, this week, did you come across anything in the first 5 chapters that you were sensitive to?
I did not get to begin reading the
There you
first
go.
5 chapters.
Okay, no problem. Good reading on the introduction. That's going to set you up nicely. Colton, did you have a chance to do any reading this week?
You know, she read to me a little bit, but
Good.
you know, we definitely talked a lot about the service part.
Okay.
And in the real world setting, I felt like I've kind of stepped it up where I've been volunteering quite a bit.
Yeah.
And so without even reading this, when she started talking about it, I already connect a lot of meaning to what the first 5 chapters about, and as far as the service goes, in the sense that being able to give, knowing that you might not receive, but using the whole karma aspect of, you know, if you put good out, it's going to come back to you kind of thing. And I definitely really connect with that concept. Look forward to learning more about those values in general.
Excellent. And feel free to hear it. The better way, probably, to hear the Vedas is to have someone read them to you. Seriously, if you have the Vedas in an oral book, probably the best way to hear them is to listen to the Vedas. So thank you for reading it. Now, you probably only had one book, so you felt that was the way it was going to get done. But that's probably the better way to understand Hinduism, is to hear the sounds of Hinduism coming across in the reading. So feel free to go either direction. Read it with your eyes or with your ears, whichever. The concept that I was most intrigued with is the overall structure. And what I was seeing as the structure is really the definition of human being. And the human being was Arjuna. And what did that represent? What kind of person was Arjuna?
A warrior.
A warrior, a man of action. And that was paired with Krishna. And who's Krishna?
His charioteer.
The charioteer. And what's he going to force you to do? What's Krishna going to focus on in this text?
Right action.
I'm going to say that Krishna is forcing you to reflect on your action.
Mm-hmm.
Reflection. That self-realization is that processing of your action. And so that you create that healthy that looping, that biofeedback system. So your actions are reflected, and then your reflection changes your action, and your action then leads to more reflection. And I argue that it's a text trying to understand the human being, who humans are. And they're using these two characters to give you that fullness of it. And so it's a classic tactic to break the two parts of human beings: action, body, reflection, soul, spirit, mind. We tend to create the human being that way. And so within the definition of the Gita, you're seeing that how you're adjusting your own who you are. And you do it by your body and your soul interacting in action and reflection and through feedback. And so the Gita has a wonderful, even in its own narrative capacity, of showing how you create a good person by this kind of feedback system between the charioteer and Aruja. Now, and that speaks to, I really like Kate not tripping over the names. Did you notice when she read, she just kept reading? The key to this course, and in any course that we tend to do because you're going to get weird names, is just say them as fast as you can and keep moving. Nobody in the room knows the right way of saying it. Okay, so just go for it. And so that was a wonderful first go around of oral reading names that weren't of your culture. So good job. And so you're going to find that I look at this. This is how I watch for things in literature. I was watching it in Dickens in The Tale of Two Cities. And he starts his book with this ability to look at two sides of an argument and making sure you're seeing both sides and then working both sides. Tale of Two Cities, Paris and London, two very different places, and yet always intertwined. in there. And so Dickens catches that same idea when he's writing. And the vast majority of writers will often pick up a theme like this. And I'm going to speak to that in a minute. Let's take a break and get a cup of tea, get ready, and we'll launch off into some new ideas for you. Let's do 5 minutes. It's now 26 minutes after. Let's get back together at 31 minutes after, okay? And tea would be wonderful, please.
Where did your tea go?
It's gone. I drank it. I am dehydrated.
Down the hatch.
Today's free dump day, so guess what I did today? Is I wore my, oh, you can use it.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Okay, so I'll be back in a flash.
What's my doctor? I meant to send her a note for that. She wanted me to, like, would you please send me a note a couple times this week and tell me what your blood pressure is? Well, I checked it last night and I had an optic migraine where I lost half my sight in my eye yesterday. And felt it was really weird to check my blood pressure. 157 over 102. And went, oh my gosh, okay, I didn't take one. Sorry,
Okay.
A little bit on the scary side this week. That was, yeah, supposed to be like, what, 90 over 70?
Thank you.
There you go. I was trying to be a doctor.
Oh, here?
Dr. Curtin, just,
Oh, is she it? Yeah.
she's like, oh, it's a hard time not hugging. So,
Okay, thank you. Looks like Ian's back too, so thank you for your timeliness.
oh, cookie. All right,
cookies sound
I'll
good.
feed you a cookie.
So I'd like to sort of bounce off of what we just discovered in the Gita as far as its design with a way I like to, and again, this will probably not be on those notes that you'll discover there. Here's tonight's.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Because it's an insertion. Did anybody have a chance to read my editorial from about a month or 6 weeks back? Anybody see that? Okay. It was my introduction to the community on what I call complementary ethics. And complementary ethics is what I work on for my life structure. It's something I'm trying to introduce. I feel it's a new way of thinking that is built on extraordinarily ancient ways of thinking. And as you study with me, you'll discover all the sources that has come for me to now present to my community a better way of dealing with problems. And I call that complementary thought. Complementary worldview. Okay, we tend to find something we call truth, and we naturally protect it. The dilemma is others find opposite truth and protect it, and we tend to fight over it. The most immediate illustration is the election that's going on. Conservative versus liberal, Republican versus Democrat. Can you imagine any society that doesn't have a conservative wing and a liberal wing? Is it possible to have a society which doesn't have a conservative wing and a liberal wing? If you wanted to analyze any society, what the first thing you not do is to divide it into two. You would see a conservative community, and what do conservatives do? They want to protect history. They want to protect what they know to be true in the historical records. And so they're conservers of the society. So it's very important we have conservatives. But we also, in every society, have those pushing into the future, wanting to move into the future, wanting to make things bigger and grander and better. And we tend to call those folks the liberals, as they push to expand the worldview into the future. So the present is really the reflection on the past and the reflection on the future, the conservative and the liberal. And so you can divide any structure into that. So it's very hard when you go into an election and you find folks that are saying, you have to be conservative, you have to be a Republican, or you have to be a liberal, you have to be a Democrat. And you get these incredible poles to thinking. Both of them are true. Are you okay with that? They both contain truth that is essential to the human being. We need to conserve, we need to liberalize. Those are essential to our understanding. My way of thinking about this was shaped by Albert Einstein. And I had the privilege of a lecturer at Duke University. And part of is to build this theme in front of a national society of philosophers. And I knew it was going to be a hard sell because the things I'm thinking about come from religious bases, not from philosophical bases. But my most convincing moment was studying Albert Einstein. And Albert Einstein, as you know from your science work, has an amazingly profound impact on our lives and the way we understand things. He has reshaped most of the way humans have thought. And his understanding of light was intriguing. You also mentioned Newton. Newton understood light to be particles with mass. And it's like those 5-ball little machines where you drop one ball and the other ball goes flying off the end. Well, that's Newton's understanding of light, that the ball hits a particle and a particle and a particle and a particle, and 1,000,000 trillion particles later, it hits your eyeball. And your eye can sense the particle of light that has mass. And Newton was able to prove that that was true. The next generation, a Dutch researcher, realized that light was a wave that has no mass. And so he was able to prove that light was a wave with no mass. It went through millions of waves, finally hit your eyeball, and you could see. And so then we began to see an oscillation. The next researcher, light's a particle with mass. The next generation of researchers, light's a wave with no mass. And they both fought back and forth, generation to generation to generation. Albert Einstein was in conversation with Niels Bohr, one of his great conversational folks, as they worked through some of these tough ideas. And Niels Bohr came up with this definition. He said, this is a deep truth, where ideas are opposite and yet they're both true. And they had to sort of, both of them sit back and realize they had to teach the opposite ideas as both true. Light has no mass and it's a wave. Light is a particle with mass. Completely inverted ideas are both true. And the only way you can do it is measure it, but when you measure it, it proves to you that it's true. And so you get the measurement problem of physics. And so this is the point I'm trying to make. We tend to find truth and protect it. We argue for it. Our opponents find truth and protect it. Complementary theory says they're both true. Okay? And so the metaphor of the dollar, of the silver coin, both opposites, but you need both sides to make a whole coin. I was most struck, we've talked about conservatives and liberals, we need them both. They define each other. If you start talking about wanting to help other people, people are going to call you a liberal. But you can look at them, and because they're not interested in helping others, you can call them a conservative because they just want to protect what they have. You self-define each other by being in relationship. You can't really define a conservative without having a liberal beside you. You can't define a liberal without having a conservative beside you. How human beings define themselves is by having someone different beside them. And that helps them know who they are. So it's a very important concept. And so we tend to find this playing out in some really horrible ways. The 500-year war between Catholics and Protestants is an interesting illustration. The Catholics believe that you're saved by works, by what you do, by your action. Protestants believe you're saved by faith, by what you think and what you believe, or your mind. Catch the reference there? So what they fought over, both were true, both were essential, and both necessary to the human being. You have to have action and you have to have belief. You have to have them both. That's true, and at the worst, human beings will fight to protect their truth. At their best, they'll admit both are true. The Gita wanted to teach you that both are true, a lesson that the Catholics and Protestants did not learn for 500 years. And so, in Christianity and Hinduism, time moves historically with a past, in Christian terms, time moves historically with a past and a future. Within Hinduism, time moves cyclically, repeating year after year. Guess what? Both are true, but we can fight for the rest of eternity, proving one is true and the other is false, or one is false and the other is true. We could do that. Or we could somehow sit back, and this problem we're going to have is, how do I think like a Hindu? And we're going to have to realize afterwards, figure out how to think cyclically instead of my personal historical way of thinking. Okay, so complementary worldview recognizes that one person's worldview may be opposite of another person's worldview, and that they are one. That's a complementary worldview. And so you'll see it in genetics. You'll see it in physics. In genetics, here's guanine with cytosine, the two elements of genetics. You'll see it in physics with light. You'll see it in biology. You'll see it in sociology. You'll see it in politics. Lynette sees it in light and color wheels with the complementary colors of the color wheel. We've seen it now in the yin yang, as what the Chinese ancient theorists were trying to realize is complementary theory. It takes white, it takes black, they have to intermingle. It takes light, it takes darkness, it takes being, it takes non-being, and it all is important that we create oneness from what we're realizing is our understanding of the truth: light, darkness, being, non-being. We have to find a way of integrating that so that we can go up to a neighbor who's totally different from us and not beat the crap out of them. And that's the point of this, is to find someone so different that they're your most important person to discover something, or they're the person you want to kill because they're so different from you. And I would argue humanity has desperately been trying to say, when you find someone different from you, you've got a friend you can learn from, as opposed to an enemy that's diametrically opposed to the way you think. And so that becomes the gift of the ancient thinkers. And they used religious thought to achieve that. And the philosophers have struggle with this because it fights with logic. Okay, so that's what I'm working on as my personal theory, that you're going to say, wow, sounds a whole lot like Hinduism. Yeah, it sounds a whole lot like Chinese philosophy. Yeah, sounds a whole lot like Christianity. Yeah, every one of them, I'll be drawing that point out of all the religions with the desperate desire to create oneness. What the Hindus knew from the beginning, the one. Bolton?
It's pretty crazy that this came out because Kate and I just had a conversation about truth. And I listened to a podcast on these people that are trying to push the carnivore diet. And he's saying, I'm explaining this truth, because there's truth and then there's what people say. He says, I think this is truth. And I didn't agree with what he said, because I said, we all have our own truth. And you're not right and I'm not wrong. We just all have a customized way of going about our life, and whether it's religion, whether it's the food you eat, whether it's the workouts you do, it's the people you hang out with, we all have our own truth. And I think we all start to realize that we're all going to be more interconnected because there's more common ground there. And another thing that you said was kind of talking about the contrast, like knowing that to have like what you want, you have to know what you don't want. And I read that recently too. It's just like, whenever there is darkness, you can turn it into a positive, because, oh, I now know I don't want that. What's the opposite of that? Okay, that's what I want.
That's right.
And I love that.
So there's the
concept,
ethic. There's the ethic we're searching for.
because it's just so much easier to connect with people and deal with the extremes that way.
Okay, excellent. Any other response, Kate or Ian?
Can you say like the ethic is knowing what you don't want? Sorry.
For me, it's moving to the opposite to discover what I'm not.
Got it.
And there's a way, for example, whenever I try and define a word, the first thing I do is try and define its opposite. It's almost always easier to get the opposite of what you're trying to find than what you're trying to find. And it helps you sort of I just call them barricades on the highway. If you know what the opposing barricades are, then you can drive down the highway. So I work fairly hard when I'm trying to understand this rail by defining its opposite rail. And that's the ethic I'm working on. And so you can talk about action, or you can talk about reflection. And you can spend your whole life talking about action. And you have to have action. Action's important. You need warriors. You need to fight. You need to do things. You need to walk. You need to exercise. You can think of 1,000 reasons why a good human being is in action. But if you don't stop and figure out what reflection is, you don't have the whole story of a human being. You have truth, but you don't have the whole truth. And what Bohr would say is the deep truth. If you don't study the opposite of what you're dealing with, you'll probably miss the truth that is embedded in the opposite. Now, this doesn't always, this isn't, you can push this theory too far and really touch on evil. But so you've got to be careful. But you certainly can find it, but truth can have an opposite and still be true, is what I'm trying to say. And that's the challenge of complementary thought, is trying to give you a new way to analyze things, to actually find a new path. To get to wholeness is if you go to your opposite and discover them. In our marriage, Lynette and I are completely opposite, but we find wholeness in our lives because, wow, we're totally opposite. But it makes us whole because of our opposites. And so I'd always encourage people to find their wholeness in their opposites. It's where it's wonderfully discovered. Ian, do you have a contribution?
I do, yeah. Going to the relationship school and learning how to, one, understand, and two, validate another's experience is sometimes acknowledging truth that might be the opposite of yours, or sometimes it's a truth that's in alignment with yours. But that skill is so valuable in crossing the divide that we see politically, racially today, is learning how to communicate with somebody. For me, just learning how to listen and let them know that, hey, I understand why your truth is your truth and it makes sense. And if you don't mind me sharing, like, this is my truth and it's kind of different, or it's like way different than what you're experiencing. There's another piece of that, but yeah, we'll put it on hold. That's my contribution. I just
I'll come back to this often.
It was kind of a crazy thing. Yesterday, I had lunch with my sister-in-law, and we are politically, we absolutely adore each other. We've been, together 45 years, and 40 years. I'm sorry, 40 years. And we have completely opposite political beliefs. We have similar religious beliefs, but we have opposite political beliefs. And so we had a really important conversation yesterday on why she's wanting to vote the way she is and why I'm voting the way I vote, completely opposite. And so, and I was trying to be open enough to listen to where she was coming from. And she was talking about the importance of policy versus person, She votes for the policy rather than for the person. And for me, it's the person that's more important than the policy in some ways. You have to have both, but you want both. You wish you had somebody who was morally sound that made good policies, but sometimes it looks like right now we have to choose between one or the other for some. And for some of us, it's pretty straightforward. But it was an interesting discussion on what was important to her was policy and not person. And for me, it was person and not necessarily. It was morality rather than policy.
In a political sense, you'll notice that society will often switch. And it's like a sailboat tacking. When it's trying to get somewhere, it's going to go one direction, and then all of a sudden it's going to invert the direction to cross over the wind to find a new direction. And societies will do that. They'll go conservative, 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 boom, they'll switch liberal. Because they'll realize that the conservatives have exhausted the health of its society. And it needs more liberal content for the society to be healthy. And you'll watch these elections switch from conservative to liberal, depending on how the society wants to get whole and healthy. And they'll switch to do that. And that's when you see that, that's the way that people can also think and do, is when they're overtly doing something. There's too much action. They're doing yoga until their body collapses. They need to stop and reflect and do nothing for a while. That's the kind of ways that politically and personally you can achieve. I'm going to dive into this, or we're going to run out of time here. Hinduism, in its world of meaning, asks the question, what is sacred? And there's an awful lot of answers. Every different village will have a different tradition. But you can see in an awful lot of the villages of India, you'll see the answer to the question, what is sacred, with the answer, Brahman is sacred. The god or the goddess is sacred. Dharma is sacred. So we need to sort of break those words down. Brahman is the designation for the one. There's that word, there's that phrase that we saw in the creation hymn. That in many people's minds within Hinduism is Brahman. Brahman is the one. Now you wonder if you have just different languages functioning here, and whether you have one language saying it this way and another language saying it this way. You always have to sort of realize that we're translating everything into English. And when we do that, we discover the challenge of trying to understand how people say the same thing. And you're going to really be frustrated trying to realize that they seem to be saying the same thing with a whole lot of different names. Yes, that's what seems to be going on. So the first one that's most dominant is Brahman. This is the one, the real. This is the ground of all the universe. My true self, Atman, and Ian's introduced us to that word. You'll find it on your list. And Colton, there's a Hebrew terms list. You got to get you got to get going. So you want to circle at this moment Atman, because you have to know what the Atman is. And Ian defined it for you. It's your true self. It's what the Hindu is going to be trying to find when they dive deep within. And that's identical with Brahman. So when they dive deep within, what we're saying is they're touching on the whole universe, on the whole of reality, bigger than the universe, what holds the universe. You're moving into that term, that ground when you say Brahman, or you say the one, or you say God within a Hebrew context. That's in that creation hymn. You're getting that. So when you know that, Brahman is the central theme of all the Upanishads. Brahman is the indescribable, inexhaustible, omniscient, omnipresent, original, first, eternal and absolute principle, who is without a beginning, without an end, who is hidden in all the creation known, unknown, and yet to happen in the entire universe. He is incomprehensible, unapproachable, radiant being, whom the ordinary senses and ordinary intellect cannot fathom, grasp, or able to describe, even with partial success. He is a mysterious being, totally out of the reach of all sensory activity, rational effort, and mere intellectual, decorative, or pompous endeavor. Can you write a bigger paragraph on trying to describe the one? Okay, Brahman. And so Brahman is going to give you a way out of samsara. We talked about the gerbil wheel. Most Westerners, when they look at Hindu thought, they sort of have a positive sense of, oh, wouldn't it be cool is if I could come back in new incarnations? Could I reincarnate in another human being and another human being? Do you remember what the great defect of that is? What's the great defect of samsara, being on the gerbil wheel of life, that Indians are terrified by? Suffering, which leads to, which comes from bad karma, which creates suffering, which creates more bad karma, which creates more suffering. And is the life you're going to get next time going to be any better than the life you have this time?
No, it's going to be worse.
Probably not. When you calculate the amount of horror and suffering in the world and the amount of good in the world, you realize there's mostly bad karma out there. So your shot of coming back as you are now, as a human being with the capacity to move to all forms of the good, is going to get less and less with each time you reincarnate. So to reincarnate to them is a horrible problem. They want out of it, and they're going to do whatever they can to get out of it. And so the way out of samsara is a path of knowledge. It could be knowing the real Atman. It could be knowing Brahman. It means moksha, liberation from the cycle caused by ignorance, desire, and karma. And so there are many ways out of karma. So there's one way that some communities look at it. It could be so instead of the Brahman, they could be recognizing the god or the goddess as sacred. And this is one who's selected as a personal god. And this is what I was hearing that Kate was doing tonight. She's really had a selection of a goddess as a personal goddess. It's very meaningful to her. She's drawing value and meaning from that awareness of who the goddess is. So that's a personal way of looking at it. There's three types of personal Hinduism. There's great god Vishnu. And Vishnu, we've got a color of that. Vishnu is depicted as dark blue or black. His avatars appear in other colors. Normally, he's depicted with 4 arms. One hand holds a lotus, the second holds a conch, the third holds a discus, which always returns by itself after being thrown, and the fourth carries a mace. The petals of the lotus are believed to symbolize the unfolding of creation. The conch is said to symbolize that which from all existence originated, and the discus and the mace reputedly are obtained by Lord Vishnu as rewards for defeating the god Indra. Lord Vishnu is said to possess a special sword called Nadaka, and a special bow called the Sangha. And his wife is the goddess Lakshmi, also known as Shri. She's the goddess of beauty and fortune. He rides a huge creature, half bird and half man, called Gandhara. His home is in heavens, called Vakatuna, where the Ganges River is believed to flow from the source of Vishnu's feet. A god has 1,000 names. The repetition is regarded as an act of devotion. So Vishnu is that counterpart to Lakshmi that you were enjoying today. There's also the great god Shiva. Again, the great Lord of all, the ultimate one. I thought that was Brahman. We just changed villages, okay? And we're now dealing with another way of looking at it and trying to understand it. So you just got to sort of deal with this way. Is okay, we just jumped to a new village. The ultimate reality is best experienced through Shiva and Shakti, and that's the masculine and the feminine sides. It encompasses all dualities, male and female, good and evil. And then we have Shiva, the great god Shiva. Now, Shiva creates Ganesha, and Ganesha is an elephant head on Ganesha's body. This is the god of prosperity and good fortune. But that was Lakshmi. Lakshmi is the goddess of good fortune. Okay. Just understand, we're in Hinduism right now. Shiva is often portrayed as bringing fierce destruction because of his quick temper and outrageous behavior. Sexually attracted to Parvati, daughter of the mountains, he marries her and then practices asceticism and refuses to impregnate her. Parvati has a son, Ganesha, born from the dirt she removed from her body while bathing. Ganesha guards the bathhouse, but one day Shiva forces his way in, and enraged that Ganesha tried to stop him, cuts off Ganesha's head with a mighty blow. Parvati's anger now threatens to destroy the world, so Shiva agrees to restore Ganesha's life, taking the head of the first living thing that came by, an elephant, and placing it on Ganesha's body. This is the origin of the extremely popular elephant-headed god Ganesha, worshipper as a bringer of prosperity and good fortune. And so when you see this, the large ears, that means you should listen more. The axe means you should cut attachments that are unhealthy. The broken tusk means you should sacrifice for a good cause. The blessings, which is the hand, that's when the hand is, that's a blessing. That is a blessing for those in the right path. The large belly is to cultivate contentment, digest both good and bad experiences. The big head means think big. The small eyes means concentrate on what you see. The rope over here means to remove obstacles. The small mouth means talk less. The trunk means to have immense strength and find discrimination. The sweet bowl in his hand over there is the rewards of a wise life. And the little mouse is desire. Ride on it to control it. Okay, the fruits, that is your material wealth at your foot, always available if you pursue the right path. You see how the moral structure gets instantly built with what we would call an idol. But what a Hindu sees are all these good moral impulses. And when they look at it, they're only looking at one thing. Maybe today they're looking at the ears and going, man, those ears are huge. Oh, yeah, today I need to work on listening more. Do you see how the moral structure gets built from what we would call an idol of Ganesha that you put in your shrine in the middle of your Hindu home? Does that make sense how that happens? You see something and you see past it. The key to an idol is not to just see it, but to see past it. And you see past it by seeing what is happening as one part of it. And that helps you create a moral demand in your life. Does that see how that works? Very highly moral structure and very useful. Comments? So the cool thing within Hinduism is we get all these female gods too. And so it's always fun to figure out how they're organizing these. And so the female gods, and you're also seeing some interesting things here. Of the female gods, they're powerful, they're active. The female is creative, therefore the gods were creative and gave the human female her creative capacity. So you get that interplay. But they're destructive as well. So you get that incredible creativity, but to create, you must destroy. All artists know that. You've got to destroy the tube of paint to make a painting. You've got to break things. You've got to break an egg to make an omelet. Women know this. And so when they bust you over your chops for what you've done, that's part of their destructive to help create the new and the better. You see how the thinking goes here, folks? Yeah. The women really like this. This is why she was writing on it. There's a lot of good news in the women of Hinduism. And yet, okay, within the reincarnation, if you just didn't have quite as good a life as you might like, where might you probably be reincarnated? And for many, the cow. And so why is the cow sacred? It represents the sacred mother. And so when they see a cow in their world, that to them means a grandmother that has been reborn as someone who's very appreciated. And so they see the reincarnation, but they recognize she's not a human anymore. She's a cow, but that's sacred. There's appreciation and there's veneration, and therefore they don't kill the cow. Therefore, they don't eat the cow. Because who are you eating? Well, you're munching on your deer. You're thinking of what the deer has given you. When a Hindu is munching on the cow, who are they think they're eating? Yeah. Grandma. Okay. That was really good, but she didn't come back as a monkey, which is really irritating. She came back as a cow. So she didn't quite have as good a life as she might have, but pretty special. And do you see how they're thinking? What creates veneration, what creates sacredness? It's grandma, if that makes sense. Okay. So why they don't kill cows? Why are they vegetarians? Because that's people. That's the spirit of people. That's the reincarnation of somebody that's died. Why would you eat them? And so they would look at you and go, eating deer? Do you know what you're eating? Is that your grandpa? Or your grandma? How do you know it's not your grandpa that reincarnated as a deer? And so they give you heartburn over going, okay, could be right. And so the great challenge you begin to see now is how their daily living starts emerging. Why are they vegetarian? because it's easier to eat a vegetable and not think it's your grandmother than to eat a cow who you're pretty sure it is somebody's grandmother. Okay, and so that creates your social structure, your way of seeing things and acting and reacting as a result of that. Okay, wonderful conversation on women and how women are emerging within Hindu religion. It's really a neat way they organize that. Or the sacred could be Dharma. And Dharma is the eternal order. It's the cosmic order. It's the eternal reality. It's the eternal order of things to be followed. It's someone finished the sentence. What is Dharma, folks? Dharma, what's the eternal cosmic order? We read that in the second hymn, the second creation hymn. What's the eternal cosmic order, folks? Look at it again. Ian, help us. What's Dharma in Hinduism? It's going to come in a second.
The wisdom, the spoken wisdom.
No, no.
It's your,
But it isn't. It's
is it the caste?
the caste system.
Oh, okay.
Dharma,
I see.
sacred, caste. Okay? And so that sacredness is because of its reality. It's obvious. Every society is that. Therefore, it comes from the eternal, from the divine. Therefore, it's sacred. Therefore, we should live it. Okay? That's how strong it is. It's part of the sacred structure is Dharma, the caste system. It's
The other phrase that's coming up for me is divine order.
They're very much, okay?
Yeah.
So, and divine order is how they envision their God structure organizing. So that there'd be premier gods, there'd be warrior gods. We've already seen the warrior god ideas. There'd be merchant gods, there'd be servant gods. So the divine space is often a mirror image of the earthly space. And so there would be that sense to it. If they were trying to organize the gods, and I don't see a lot of organization in Hindu god structure, but if they were on a try, they'd do it on the Dharma, on how this seems to be created. But if you think of Greek gods, Zeus, Mars, god of war, Eros, god of love, and you see this structure very, very, very much clearly within the Greek god structure. And they worked it this way. They worked a caste system when they thought about their god structure. So you see it much clearer within the Greek deities than I'm seeing it here. I'm just seeing cacophony, real chaos of god structure. Not a lot of attempt to organize it. So here's the foundation of Dharma and karma. The law of karma, an unfailing result from every action. Following the Dharma, living in accordance with reality. Look at that. The caste is real. You need to live in accordance of the real. There is a head, there is arms, there's a belly, there's legs. That's real, folks. You can't fight that. The human Dharma, the present class and conditions you're in your present class and your conditions from your past karma. So you have 4 structures you're going to have to deal with. And if you were a good servant and did good things, when you reincarnate, you come back as a merchant. And you get to do good things as a merchant. And then you get to come back as a warrior. And then you get to come back as a leader. Oh, I got my path. There's the path, folks, of karma helping you from wherever you are to get to wherever you want to be. But what's it take? A whole lot of good karma and a whole lot of reincarnations. Okay? Do you see the path? Does that make sense? But you got to live, do it well, wherever you find yourself. You don't fight it. It's Dharma. It's sacred. Wherever you find yourself, do a good job because you're not an American. You got a whole lot of lifetimes to work with. You fight it, you create bad karma, you're going down. to the feet, to the dirt, to the rocks. That's where you're going with your bad karma. Don't fight it. Okay, do you see how the logic of Hinduism begins to work in the lives of Hindu? Completely different logic than yours. So this is a hard battle, folks. This is a hard battle to get this one down. But they have the advantage of many lifetimes to work with. How many lifetimes do you have? One, get it done. Work hard. Climb the ladder. Da, 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 da. Kill yourself trying to be president. You know, if that was your mom's goal, was you needed to be president. You know, up the ladder. Okay? Pretty hard to do, isn't it? Okay, so they get that's their advantage, is they got a bunch of lifetimes to work with, millions of lifetimes. But their horror is there's bad karma everywhere. And the likelihood is they're not climbing the ladder to success and being a Brahmin. They're going down and they're going to be a dog. And that's what's going to happen because of a hard life and suffering and pain, chaos. Okay, so you're beginning to catch a difference on the worldview between a Hindu and an American? Really different, folks, really different. So the existence in the world of Dharma and Samsara, so the world and human nature, the world is here, it functions by the eternal Dharma, the gods work to keep it going. Humans have the duty to contribute to its welfare. Creation from one reality, the whole universe evolves from one reality. It's a cyclical process of creation and destruction. The creation and destruction is one kalpa, or 4.3 billion years. And then it reverses until Vishnu alone remains. So here's a really cool creation mechanism. So it's gonna create, run out of gas, decreate until Vishnu remains. Okay? So there's a really funky way of cyclic life. Whereas what do we think? Big bang, today. And we're structured to think Big Bang or God created, take a religious view or a scientific view, and you start at the minutia and you go to today. And that's the way we think. But the Hinduism is going to force everybody to think in cycles. And even their cosmology, 4.3 billion years, is a cycle of creation and destruction, creation and destruction, creation and destruction. And so their cosmology is always seeing everything in cycles. Ours is seeing this linearity of beginning and where we're at and pushing into the future where there's an end and the sun blows up and we're all done. We're trapped in that linearity. They're equally trapped in their cyclical basis. And so, okay, how we do? Have I blown up your world yet? Okay, so what's our place in this world? So there's a clear distinction between the physical body and the spiritual. There's a clear break there. You have your body, but your body's going to do what? Die. You have a spirituality, and what's going to happen to it?
It's going to continue to live.
Because it has done what in the past? It is going to continue to live because
It's always been.
it's always been. So that which is in you is part of the eternal, because it's been going from living being to living being for millions upon billions of recreations, and it's that same thing inside of you. Okay? Now, sort of think of life that way. You have within you billions of the best of living things. Where would you want to go hunt? Outside in your garden, or just go hunt within? You got a lot of work to do to discover what's in you. There's no need to go discover out of you. That's only changeable and craziness. Discover the reality within you as that eternal part of you is what they're now trying to find. So they divide, they're dualists. They break the body and the soul. But complementary thought says they're one. and they know they're one too. But, okay, so do you get a sense of how their empirical self, their physical body, and their real self, this word Atman we've already learned tonight. The real self is that eternal something within them that has been that eternal something migrating from living to living to living to living for millions upon billions of cycles. And it's really special because it's now yours. That's your Atman. That's your Brahman. That's your connection of that which is in you. And that within Hebrew language became the word for the soul. And we also see that word within Greek thought, what the soul is. It's that which has been given you by the divine so that you can take advantage of it, which will go on to others. Okay? And that's your contribution to them. When you die, all of you does not die. Your soul moves now on to someone else, and they get an advantage to that which you give them, and it reincarnates someone else. Okay? Different way of thinking, folks, about living and dying. Incredibly different way of thinking about living and dying. And so that's where it's going. So your Atman is eternal. Your Atman is formless. It's your true self. It's embodied according to the workings of karma. Good people, good people, good people, good people. Hey, I'm a great person. Bad people, bad people, bad people, bad people. I've got a soul that's crud, and I'm just going to kill everybody. See how that's working? How that's thinking? Okay. And so your evil karma down the next incarnation, down, 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 down. Somehow, somewhere, that soul can find a living something that'll reverse that and begin to move up the ladder again. But the chance of that is really hard because life is tough. Our ultimate goal is to break out of this. This is horrible because all we're going to do is cycle down, cycle down, cycle down, get me out of the gerbil wheel of life that is really a gerbil wheel into worse and worse and worse, and I'm coming back in worse and worse situations. Get me out of this because I can't just, but the dilemma is, and so you want to seek moksha, which is liberation from the gerbil wheel, samsara. And so your goal is to live a good life according to Dharma, promoting the welfare of all beings in the cycle of life. Wow, is that a packed sentence? How do I live a good life? You live in your caste. Are you reading that right? You're living in your caste because that's your Dharma, promoting the welfare of all beings, selfless service, beings in the cycle of life, because that's where you're at. You're there. You're trapped. Get used to it. Do your best because your job is to break that. So you want to get good karma going so that you can be in your next life going into a better place, not a worse place. Okay? So that, do you sense that, how that sentence unpacks? Everything okay, Ian?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So samsara, pain and suffering. Another lifetime means more suffering and more pain. So you can see every human being suffers extraordinary pain. So you can see how that's going to always give them that nervous factor of my pain must mean I'm living bad karma, therefore I'm now worried. I'm worried a lot about what my future is. And so the pain was so much a part of this. And that sense of suffering is just overwhelming because all human beings suffer. And so the Hindu life is going to be trying to figure out how to break this suffering and pain problem. And eventually it's going to lead us to Buddhism because that's going to be probably the greatest break out of this is going to really be, well, change the way you think. And that's how you're going to break out of this pain and suffering problem. But right now we're thinking of as a Hindu, and we've got to really recognize that all lives are suffering, all lives are pain. Therefore, our lives are going to naturally assume everything's getting worse all the time because that's what you deal with is suffering and pain. But it isn't overwhelmed by pessimism. It's just the transientness of it. There's a sense of understanding of life as very pragmatic. I'm in pain. Okay, but it's going away. Well, how will it go away? I'm going to die. Good news. The pain stops when I die. So there's a pragmatism that emerges, not necessarily a pessimism. And so optimism, you have to force through it and build that into it. But there's a natural pragmatism. But the key to the human problem, we will see this over and over in religions, is you just don't know. You don't know how to get off the gerbil wheel. You're just on it, you're living it, you wake up, you do your thing, you go to sleep. You wake up, you do your thing, you go to sleep. You do that a whole life. You have no idea how to get off your gerbil wheel. So ignorance is the heart of the problem here. And knowing while you're on that gerbil wheel, there's enormous suffering and there's enormous pain. And if you don't know how to get off the gerbil wheel, you don't know who you are. You don't know that within you is this amazing gift of the divine that is a part of who you are. And all you're doing is covering it up with the average dirt of the day. And every day is just pouring more dirt onto this amazing gift within you. And so that's all the gerbil wheel is doing, is giving you another layer to your onion. And you're getting more and more, so that every day is just a new layer, and you're getting further and further away from that incredible gift of the divine within you. And so that's a perception of what life really is if you're ignorant. It arises from illusions. You just don't know who Brahman is, or you're blinded by reality. You see a Rolls Royce drive down your village, and you go, I want one of those. Well, do you have any idea the bad karma it takes to get a Rolls Royce? It takes a boatload of bad karma to get a Rolls Royce. Are you really sure you want a Rolls Royce that's just driven through your town? And so they have illusions. They're blinded by what they perceive to be real. The real is that which goes by them. But they need to know that the real is actually that which is within them. And so they're blinded to that because that hits them in their senses. One does not know out of ignorance and desire. They create conditions for the next lifetime where one will act in ignorance and desire. Are you seeing a real need of transformation? They need a path out of this. And so Hinduism is their paths of transformation so that they can discover the new and the different. Okay? How we doing? Have I overwhelmed you in ways that you can't recover from? You doing okay? So the key now is beginning to understand the paths of transformation. How do I get off this gerbil? But the first thing you guys have to do is understand the mindset. What the Atman is. How the Atman is covered by daily life and desires and horror. How people's cyclical nature just traps them in life, of everyday life. And that's a life of pain and suffering. So the key now is to understand our paths of transformation. How do they get off of this gerbil wheel into something else? For them, there's three paths of transformation. There's knowledge, action, and there's devotion. Knowledge, action, and devotion. They can get off the gerbil wheel three ways. They can know something, they can act to get off of it, or they can become devoted, and that will get them off of it. And so the path of liberating knowledge is a path that's very different than we think. Our path of liberating knowledge is going to university and becoming a professional and making a boatload of money. Right? Is that not our path of liberating knowledge in American society? Get the best job you can, make the most money, get the biggest whatever. Folks, we've known since humans were alive that that's not the most meaningful way to achieve the best life. That our consumer society floods us with that path of liberating knowledge, quote unquote. This is not Hinduism's path of liberating knowledge. It's almost the reverse. Get rid of almost all those things. It's a deep existential realization of the ultimate ground of one's true self. It's within you. All you have to do is spend an enormous amount of time deep diving to get to it. You've got to just You've got to know that it's there, and you've got to go after it, and it's within you. That knowledge is a felt knowledge. It's an experience knowledge. I know true Brahman when there is nothing for me to desire from myself. I am already, for I already am all. It's within you. Why the yoga posture for a guru? Why? Why the yoga posture for a guru sitting in a temple in the middle of India? What are they doing?
I'm open to everything, attached to nothing.
Open to everything, attached to nothing. And if I move, I'm going to attach to something. So I ain't moving. You get the method? Okay. And so that there's a knowledge. Knowledge of that which is in destroys desire, because you want what you already have. So you don't want everything around you. And everything around you is filled with bad karma. So by looking for what was within, you're creating good karma. And an amazing amount of good karma, because you're searching for that which is best. As opposed to chasing after everything around you, which only creates bad karma. We all know that, but we still do it anyway. Okay? So moksha is dissolving the Atman into the one Brahman, salt into water, bliss, freedom, and joy. Okay? So the mechanism of liberating knowledge, meditation and yoga, you withdraw from the world as a detached hermit. You realize the true inner Atman and reach moksha. The chariot is bodily life. The charioteer is the soul. Your meditation, withdraw one's consciousness from the outer sensual reality and turn inward. Ow. 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 The sacred sound. A, the waking state. U, the dreaming state. M, the deep sleep state. But as we discovered, where's the Atman, folks? Ow.
In the space between.
In the space between. Silence, the real Atman. Neither cognition nor non-cognition, unthinkable. There's the Atman, folks. That's the liberating knowledge. And so, and I'll end with this tonight. Yoga. So now when you look at yoga, this is what it's attempting to achieve, is a pathway of liberating knowledge so that you can focus on what's most important. And yoga is designed to do this. And so when you go through the stages of yoga from the ancient perspective, you see that first stage of restraint, abstain from violence and evil. It's hard to do violence and evil in a yoga pose. It's just hard to do it. You can still do it, whack the person next door to you, grab their bottle of water. You can still do it, but you're restraining yourself. Observant, purity and dedication. Step 3, posture, proper sitting position. Step 4, breathing control. Draw closer to the essence of reality. Step 5, to withdraw the senses, detach the mind from the senses. Step 6, to concentrate, focus the mind. Step 7, to go into meditation, stabilizing the mind. Step 8, the trance. The mind swells to limitless reality. There, folks, is ultimate transformation. There, folks, is moksha. There, folks, is no more regrets. So that's your path of liberating knowledge. Okay? We'll deal with the next 2 paths next time. So bring your stuff. Okay? So my process question is, how does this contribute to health? How does everything we've said make you a healthier or a sicker person? How does yoga help? How does searching for that which is within better? Any immediate response to that?
I think of affirmations right away. Like, you are already enough. you don't need to gain material things or promotions or things from the external world to feel good about where you are or who you are. Like, I am enough. I am good enough. That's kind of pops up right away.
Okay, so there's an affirmation that there is something that's within you that's amazing, and that should build you, make things better for you. Okay, what else?
Yeah, I would second what Colton said. That the abundance is within you, and if we keep reaching outside of ourselves, eating more, reaching for like instant gratification through consumerism or sex, it's you're stepping into unhealthy habits. And I'm sure there's a way that you could draw a line through those attachments to things outside of you that are unhealthy. So finding this place of peace, which could lead to the reality deep within yourself of oneness, completeness. You won't feel this need or grasping, and you'll experience healthy habits. And yeah, my interpretation.
Good. Your Hinduism is wanting you to think that way. Okay. Okay, for next week, I want you to sort of dive into the scriptures. We've worked on the creation hymns today. And so the key tools for this coming week are scriptures. And so my hope, Mr. Ian, is that you'll get something that makes it easy. What makes it easy is an anthology. Dropping into the Vedas is a real challenge. So that's why the anthology makes it work. Now, the way the anthology is written is it has categories. So you're going to read things about history, you're going to read things about biography, you're going to read things about center of focus, you're going to read things about ethical teaching, and you're going to read things about organization, ritual, religious value. So the anthology is broken up to give you little bits and pieces of those different categories. What I want you to do this week is do what we did today. And so we did a creation hymn, which really had a sort of a sense of their historical memory. And when we read the history of Hinduism in the creation hymn, we talked about our own personal background. We talked about the Hebrew creation hymn that we learned as a child. We talked about the scientific creation hymn that we learned in science class. And so what you're doing is reading the sections, the historical sections, and you're reacting to your own personal background. So you're going to go through in your readings this week in the scriptures, and you're going to read a few things that are dealing with biography. And I'm not sure in Hinduism what their biography might be. It might be some Krishna passages. I'm not sure what they've done. But within there's Buddhism. So you're going to read a few things. What is it? So you're going to read a few things on, there's ritual, there's life of women, there's ethics. So there's teachings. And so my challenge to you as you go through each major section so I'm just going to pick ethics. As you go through each major section of this text, ethics, whatever you find in the text, you're going to read the ethics section, and then you're going to find a passage, one passage that you're interested in. Again, I'm not looking for a summary. I'm looking for you to find something interesting in the ethics section. So I would just sort of bet that Kate's going to like the life of women section in ethics. And what I want you to do as you go through each section is you're going to find something in the life of women that really is going to get your goat. It might irritate you. It might enthrall you. You're going to find that one section. You're going to highlight it, and you're going to react to it, and then you're going to write it down. Okay. Then you're going to go on to the next section, which is organization. you're going to read about the 4 caste systems. And Ian's going to have a little conniption fit over the caste system, which he should. And he's going to react to the castes. And so he's going to react out of his own personal narrative. And so as you go through each major section of the text, the introduction, so this one's designed for Hinduism is so Hinduism is it's first going to do introduction, which is a lot of history. It's going to then do teachings. So it really didn't have a great God section. Its center of focus was on creation. So it's creation that we talked about today, and then it's going to go through its ethics, and then it's going to go through its organization, and then so there's a form that just sort of carries you through the major themes of each religion. This anthology is designed to give you parts of history, parts of biography, parts of center of focus, this time was on creation, parts of ethical teaching, parts of organization, parts of ritual, parts of religious value. So the assignment is to fight your way through this sheet of paper, which means read the text, but read it knowing I need to find one thing in each major section. Okay, and in the organization or in the ethics, it's going to be on the life of women. And if there's one thing in the life of women that caught my attention, oh, I'm responding as a scientist to how they perceive women. Okay, so you're gonna make those comparisons. So that's the intent of the assignment, is to read the scripture, read it in its groupings, and respond to one thing in each section, not just in the overall reading like last week. You just found one thing in the overall reading. I want you to find one thing in each section of the reading and respond to it. Okay, so don't overwrite, folks. I don't want this to be a 5-page paper. I want this to be, I found a text, it means this to me, I'm reacting to it this way, 2 or 3 sentences each time, and you're done. Okay, do not write a whole page on each section. I just want to see how you're hitting these ideas that you're encountering. So I'm not looking for a long amount of writing. I'm looking, literally, students could fill out this page handwritten, 2 or 3 sentences in each box, and it's fine for me. I'm not looking for extensive. But in your case, it's easier probably to use a word processor, go through each section, grab an idea, respond to it. Go to the next section, grab an idea, respond to it. But if you give me where you found it, that means in class next week, you can find it easily. I can flow with you. Now, we've got different editions. We'll fight with it. But the point is, get you reading primary texts, so you're reading the scriptures of the religion, and you're reacting it from your own space. Okay? So if you understand the point, now we're going to break it into various different sections. Okay? A little tougher, students
Yeah, that's
struggle
clear.
with this, but if you get my drift, I'll be happy with whatever shows up. Okay?
And this positive and
Yeah.
negative reactions?
Anything, yeah.
Anything, okay.
You can go either way. You can affirm it, you can just trash it. It's your choice. Okay? Seriously, that's
Yeah.
what I want you to do. Okay? And so what's going to happen is in future religions, so when we get into Buddhism, you're going to have to put on your Hindu glasses and look at Buddhism as if you're a Hindu. And we're going to do the same thing. But you're going to critique Buddhism as a Hindu from your reading of the Hindu scriptures. And you're going to critique what's going on, or you're going to affirm and say, hey, this is great. So it's going to be your choice. Okay? So that's what's going to happen in the future. Today, for this assignment, read the sacred texts, realize that, and react to each major section. Few sentences off one scripture, 2 scriptures. Bounce off of it. Tell me what the scriptures are, bounce off of it. Change sections. Find an interesting one. Tell me what it is, bounce off of those scriptures. Okay? That's what I'm trying to do, is get you into the primary text, folks. So you're not just hearing lectures, you're reading the documents. Okay? Everybody okay? Survivable? You can do this? Okay.
Yeah.
As far as anything else this week, well, I think I missed it. I forgot to do my Yeah, activities. Watch a video about India. PBS has a great history of India. Now that you've gotten a bit of awareness. Keep reading your Rig Veda. You're responsible for reading 6 through 10 for this week. Don't worry about that. Try and have a conversation with that person that you're working on, and begin thinking of what you'd like to do for your major project. Okay, what kind of major project are you beginning to think of? I'd like for you to talk about it next week. I'm not going to get you to write anything else other than the one. So only use this as a reference point. I'll adjust it. iLearn is your best place to do assignments because that's what I want. My lecture notes change every time I give the lectures, so sometimes I haven't gotten back to. But iLearn is what I want this semester. So if you see it, it needs to get done. So if you'll use that as your key reference point, okay? So that the writing I want you to do this week is a scriptural comparison. Your thinking, I want you to think about what you're going to do in the course. And I want you to talk to a person, and if you can, grab a movie about Hinduism, India, or something relevant. Okay, as if you've gotten all the time for everything else you want to do in your life. Okay, I got to let you go. I'm 5 minutes late. Everybody okay?
Yeah, it's okay. Brian, I do have
Yep, Ian.
something to point out. So when I go on iLearn and I'm looking at the dates, it says the 24th through the 30th.
Right.
Beneath that, that's where it says read chapters 1 through 5. So to me, that says read chapters 1 through 5, the 24th to the 30th,
Okay.
as opposed to right now, you're telling me to read 6 through 10.
Okay. Yeah. Let me, again, this is the first iteration of iLearn, and I need to read it how you read it. Let me go this week and make sure it's clear. So what
Okay, what would make sense if it said due on the 24th
Right. Yeah.
is chapters 1 through 5.
So that means you're forcing, so what is in the written syllabus now, and I changed the syllabus because we lost a week.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Okay, next week, so I'll rewrite it. There's no foul, no penalty for my errors, other than you have to sort life out. Are you okay with what I've introduced to you, the scriptural comparison from your readings? If your book doesn't arrive, then defer it, please, and we'll deal with that problem if you can't get to what I'm asking you to do. Don't be afraid to say the book isn't here, and we'll try and help you some other way.
Okay. I think I'll be able to read 1 through 10 by next class. I don't think that would be an issue.
Okay, so that's fine. That will catch us up there. I have an up-to-date syllabus for the class here. I believe I put the up-to-date syllabus on iLearn so that you know. Is that the correct one?
Yeah.
Okay. So Ian, you're the ones that it is at risk if you don't have the up-to-date syllabus. So that will get you moving in the right direction. I will review iLearn to make sure it matches the syllabus this week and make sure I don't have any more of this. Okay?
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Because
thank you.
I really want iLearn to be valuable and helpful and the go-to place. But it's hard to keep them in sync when I had been forced to change them. Thank you for alerting me to that. I do appreciate it. Any other comments?
Yeah. Thanks for all your efforts on your end.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great week. Bye.
You as well. Bye, Colton. Bye, Katie.
Everybody.
Bye, Lynette.
Notice I got your camera working.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks.
I'm proud of my accomplishments on that one. I thought that one was going to kill me.
Yeah, good job.
Thank you, Ian. Good night now.
All right. Take care.
Yeah, bye-bye now.